In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Grizzlies beat writer Drew Hill, joined as always by columnist Chris Herrington. We are in the middle of Summer League. We've gotten 3 Grizzlies Summer League games so far. I'm here in Las Vegas right now, 53rd floor. My ears are popping. I feel like I can't hear anything. But I can use my eyes, and I used my eyes to watch the Grizzlies. Both losses, both like really close games. One game better than the other by quite a wide margin. Chris, let's just start here. How much have you been able to consume? Did you at least catch game number 2, which seems to be the most significant of the 3 so far? And what did you make of the experience, the viewing experience?
I got to go on a tangent to start, because when you said I'm on the 53rd floor, a song lyric popped in my head. I was like, is that what they say? And then I went to look it up on my phone, and it's not the 53rd floor. The Flying Burrito Brothers song, Sin City, which I think is actually about Los Angeles, but it seems like it might be about Las Vegas. The line in the last verse says, on the 31st floor, a gold-plated door won't keep out the Lord's burning rain. So I think you're safe on the 53rd floor. I think you're about 22 floors higher than higher.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like I can't hear anything, so listening to music might be a challenge. But no, on a serious note, every time I go to a new city, and this is true of a lot of teams, if you go to opposing team shoot around, I swear at least 40% of the time they're listening to Memphis related music. Like, I feel like people like to listen to music that is of the city that they're in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When they travel. And I did a playlist search on the flight here from Salt Lake City. Now, I didn't do this in Salt Lake City, although I'm not sure if there's anyone to ask, maybe it's you, like what type of music might originate in Salt Lake City. But
I don't know what's from. I can't think of anything from Utah except for the Osmonds. You could go a heavy Osmonds playlist. Donnie and Marie, the Osmonds are from
okay,
Utah. There are very few songs about Utah. Like I've researched this because at one point, so I did a radio show for about 3 years on WYXR radio in Memphis. My show was called Sing All Kinds. I did different themes. But apologies to Robbie Grant. I made them change. I changed the concept of my show after they'd already put the program up online. So my original concept, which I had sent to Robbie for my show, was going to be called Road Trip Radio. And what I was going to do was that
okay,
every week was going to be music about a different place. So I was going to start in Memphis, and then the week 2, I would go down to Arkansas, and week 3, Louisiana, week 4, South Texas, week 5, North Texas. I was going to work my way around the country over the course of a whole year doing shows dedicated to different places. And I could not have done an hour-long show of you for Utah. It just was not possible. So I was going to have to do like a Southwest show that would like have 1 or 2 Utah songs in there, with Colorado and New Mexico or whatever. There's very little Utah out there in the world, musically speaking.
yeah, no, Vegas was easier. And by the way, while I am on the 53rd floor, I hope our Wi-Fi is good for this podcast. I guess we're gonna find out when we listen to it later.
Yeah.
Um, but no, there were 3 songs of very different genres, and that popped into my head. Okay, you ready for the 3? You're gonna be like, what the heck? The 3 songs. Uh, the Gambler, Kenny Rogers, right?
Right.
Obviously, like, come
No
on.
one, no one to hold them, no one to fold them,
Uh,
no one to walk
no,
away, no one to run.
yep, yep. Uh, Tumbling Dice by the Rolling Stones. That, I don't know why, but that one came up. That one came up. Um,
The closest thing to a hit single on the best Rolling Stones album, Exile on Main Street. Yep.
and then Waking Up in Vegas by Katy Perry.
Okay.
A pop song from, no doubt, was played in our house by my little sister as a kid. Those were the 3 that came to mind. I'm sure there's a ton more. I mean, there's the Elvis. Come on, Viva Las Vegas, Elvis.
Right.
I should have thought of that one. But yeah, we got a lot going on. There's a lot of music in Vegas.
If you expand just to gambling, that's a topic you can get a lot out of that. The Card Cheat by The Clash is a gambling song. There's more Vegas songs, but I've sidetracked the pod probably long
Yeah, I
enough
know.
to do it to do it right from the jump. So I will refrain from just naming Las Vegas songs.
Okay, let's get back to basketball. Yeah, so two games, viewing experience. What did you make? What did you make of the viewing experience, Salt Lake City Summer League?
I like that you say two games, we're just pretending that game three didn't happen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
basically. I
Yeah,
watched
and the first game was Saturday after Fourth of July. So who
yeah,
was really all that locked
yeah.
into
I will
that?
confess I have watched. I do plan if I can go back and watch it on previously recorded or whatever. If it's archived, I'm going to go back and watch the first one. But I only watched game two live. Game one I was traveling, and game three I looked at who was playing and said nope. I'm just going to take a pass on that one. So game two, the Gigi Jackson game, and this is where I have to reprimand you because where was our pool report for game two? How come you didn't demand a pool report to find out why Gigi Jackson didn't get his point?
It's summer league for us too, right? It's summer league. So that's a good that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. No, that's a good one. So for people that don't know how the pool report works, um, for every regular season Grizzlies home game, a pool reporter is assigned to the game, and it is the job of the pool reporter to essentially request to speak to the officials if there is a controversial call in the game, right? It's saved for big decisions, ejections, last second plays. Like, very rarely does a
When,
pool report actually
when,
end up happening.
when T Morant got tossed from a game this season, that
I filed a
there was a
pool
poll
report.
report on that, right? So it's that kind of stuff.
So it alternates, right? It's usually me or DeMichael. Like that's usually who it is. Or if I'm not there, I suppose I don't know. Maybe it was you a few times last year. Um,
This is for Grizzlies home games. It'll be a home game beat reporter typically.
it became a running joke last season that only when I was the pool reporter did we actually have to file a pool report. I think I did it 5 times. I don't think DeMichael did it once. I don't remember you doing it. Like it was just like I don't know. So you're right. Because I was in attendance, we did have a pool report situation, and yeah, I dropped the ball on that. No, just kidding. There's no pool report in summer league. But yeah, it was obviously
I think it may have been a three. The camera work was so bad we
it
can't say
felt
for
like they were
sure.
ready to go home.
Well, they weren't ready enough because they spent 4 minutes looking at it. They could have just immediately said, "Nope, this is a two. We're going home." That's what they should have done.
Yeah, maybe that is what they should have done. No, Gigi's reaction I thought was great. He like collapsed to the floor in disappointment. I'm like,
That's
Summer League, man.
a heartbreaker.
Summer League pandemonium. Uh, but no, I think that there's been some good things to take away from the first few games. I was actually listening to the podcast you did with Keith Parrish today on the flight over here. Uh, and a lot of that was consumed by Jemai Mashak. So I think the
Yeah.
real players that we're focused on right now, Mashak, uh, Gigi Jackson, Jalen Wells, Cam Spencer, to some degree Zion Pullen, Javon Small
One game.
has
Yeah.
a groin injury, so
Do
he's
we
only played in
do,
one game.
do we think we'll see him again? Do you think he's going to be done now, Javon Small?
I asked about that after the last game, and I was told that they're figuring that out, but
Right.
like I don't know if like they're gonna push him on that. I think it would probably I don't know. I think if he's gonna play summer league again, I would probably expect that it's gonna be later on in Vegas, but I don't. I'm just guessing. That's just total guesswork. That's not reporting.
Yeah.
Um,
Cedric
and then
Howard Cedric Howard being
yeah,
unavailable really puts a spotlight on GG. in this, I
Yeah,
think.
it sounds like that's probably not going to happen. At least my understanding is that it's not going to happen. I think all along the hope
Coward
was
play,
maybe one of,
coward
yeah,
playing, you mean? Right.
yeah. All along the hope was like maybe he could get in one of the last couple games, but I mean, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so, yeah, you're right. Big spotlight on Gigi. That's who I chose to write about. And I found myself in an interesting position as I
So
did
so
the
so so,
interview.
so how did you, for people who haven't read it, hopefully everyone has. If you haven't, you need to read it. It's a very good piece. But one of one of the things in the piece was about him having a conversation with Ty Jerome, not this week, but last season. How did that come about that you found out about the conversation he had with Ty Jerome a year ago, or not a year ago, but last season?
It was really crazy. So I did the full interview with Gigi. Um, and then at the end of the interview, like they were needing to go to the team bus. I was hoping to ask about Ty Jerome. Um, and I thought maybe I would put something together about what the current Grizzlies on the roster think about him. But then honestly, it fit more into the Gigi story than it did into that. Um, and he said, I actually met Ty Jerome. I met Ty Jerome uh, during the season, and I saw him in Phoenix, and we ran into each other. And um, yeah, and I was just like, "Oh, you did?" And I said, "Well, what was that conversation like?" He said, "Well, I was complaining. I was complaining about the fact that and and so I'll save some of it for people to read, and we'll talk about it. But um, I thought it was interesting too because like I went to go write the piece, and I had completed like 90% of it when I thought about it for a minute later, and I was like, how the heck did Gigi and Ty Jerome cross paths in Phoenix? Like, and so I went through the Grizzlies schedule, and like it was like a month difference between when the Grizzlies played Phoenix, and I ended up having to go back and work like back channels, like ask around, and then it finally occurred to me it was on the G League trip. It was when Gigi was playing in the G League last year because he wasn't getting any minutes for the Grizzlies, but
Right.
they were playing the Valley Suns of the G League, and the Cavs just happened to be in town playing the Phoenix Suns, and that is how they ended up crossing paths. But the gist of the story, the baseline of the story, and this is why I say I found myself in a little bit of a tough position, was mostly that I had interest in just taking a temperature check on Gigi in terms of where he is, mentally entering the season because last year, and I mean, you were around for a lot of it. There was a lot of complaining from Gigi, even to the media. Like, and a lot of it, I don't think went out
Yeah.
because Gigi wasn't really playing.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was pressing. It felt like if we were to put that out, it would just feel like an attack on
It
on
it
Gigi when it
it
wasn't
yeah, it
necessary.
wasn't just things that we were hearing from people. Like it was things that we were witnessing in the locker room, like it overheard kind of this stuff, right? But to your point, it was, it wasn't always on the record, and it was, even when it was, there wasn't necessarily a lot of value in making a big deal out of it. But it was noticeable. It wasn't just something you had to pick up, secondhand. I mean, it was noticeable to people who were around.
So I wanted to know what his mindset was. And then I also had to factor in the fact that he's 20 years old, right? And like I wanted to write a story, and you kind of know that what the answer is going to be when you go into something like that. Like he's going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm I've restarted everything. I'm ready to go. Like new season, new GG." And like I expected that as an answer. And I think it's notable that he said it. Like, and I'm not trying to say that I think he's lying. Like, I don't think that he is at all. Like, I think that I've also back checked this and asked around about how he's been so far through summer league, and all signs point to the fact that he's ready to go. Like he's been a different player since he was towards the end of last season. Um, but
He
He is
was.
20, right?
We noted this before, but just to note it again. And this is partly because he was around because he was going to be on the summer league team. But like he was the only Grizzlies player, like incumbent Grizzlies player, who was there at the press conference when the rookies were introduced, and was there to greet them. And so
Yes, that's right.
his presence and sort of the positive attitude he's brought to it has been noticeable. I think I detected that as well.
I think that there's two parts to this, right? Gigi can say it, and that's good that he's willing to say it. And then he's also got to back it up, right? Like he's got to do it. That's got to be the same Gigi throughout the year, because we all know how talented he is, and you see it in these first two games. He shot over 50%, scored 20 plus points from the floor. He looks you know, like he's above, frankly, a lot of these summer league players, and it really has popped off the page, and we can get more into that. Um, but I do think that, you know, this is something that he's got to continue to do. He's got his mind in the right place. I don't hold it against him at all that he showed some immaturity at 19 years old because he was 19 years old. And so I think for him, now the next step is just continuing that through a full season. He talked about trying to arrive early places, trying to make sure he's a pro off the court first, so that all of that talent can really flash and show itself when he is out on the court. And I think that, if you go read the story, it's impressive. And I think part of the reason why I'm so inclined to believe him when he says that, he's putting all that immaturity and stuff in the past is just the fact that he's so openly willing to own up to it, right? Like to say, like, yeah, you know what? Last year I lost my way a little bit, and I didn't. I felt like you know, um, had moments of immaturity and pouting, and it's not easy to do that, especially in a public space, to say, hand up, like, I wasn't the best version of myself, and I can be better than that. And so I was really impressed. I thought it was a really candid interview. I'm really hopeful that he's, you know, that this is going to continue. And I think still has a really bright future in the league. And then as far as on the court goes, like, I think the next step for him, and you can chime in here too, and I know this has been pointed out by a lot of people in a lot of different places, is just like, you know, limiting some of the extracurricular stuff and just being able to put two dribbles on the floor and get to the basket and use that athleticism and make threes and be able to score off the ball without it having to be dribble, 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 create for myself. And, I've been really encouraged by these first two summer league games by him, because I think we've seen a lot of him being able to sort of uh, be a scorer without having to create it all himself.
That's exactly one of the points I was going to make. I think, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit from what you said. But the other end of the court, I think there's sort of two things with Gigi. There's the offense and the defense, and the defense is key because that's what took him off the floor last season, and that's what can keep him off the floor if he doesn't get better defensively. I think there's a limit to how much you're going to get out of summer league with that. He had the one good block that was noticeable. He was on the bad end of a highlight where he got ISO to get on an island against Isaiah Collier, who just did a spin move and got right to the rim against him. One good play, one bad play, but that's not really what it's about. It's about the consistency of effort and execution and focus. So that remains to be seen. That's just something that we're going to have to see in the regular season. That if it doesn't get better, that will keep him from getting minutes. But on the offensive end, I think it's been interesting to watch how he scored in these games and to think about that in the context of the way the team might function with Thomas Isolo. And I think it's been encouraging, to your point, because I think Gigi Jackson's role is going to be a scorer. He is a get buckets player. I think that that's going to be the kind of player he is. He's not a 3-and-D guy. He's going to be a scorer, but I don't think he's going to be like a go-to guy. It hasn't been everybody clear out, Gigi's going one-on-one. That's not really the way it's been happening. And I don't think that's the way it's going to happen for him anytime soon. But what it's been is catch and shoot has been good. Catching the ball, knocking down threes. Catch and attack a closeout and go hard to the rim on one or two dribbles instead of hovering with the ball and finish at the rim with force. He's been doing that. There's been some get out in transition and be a target at the rim in transition. There's been some just get a rebound and go up and dunk on a dude. There's been some of that. And I think that's the way he's going to need to play. And you can see him in this system. And I think he could play some four and be the guy who sets the screen and is the roll man. And now he's a threat to get the ball that way. I don't think it's going to be run plays through Gigi. I think it's going to be, can he get scoring opportunities off of the other central action? The catch and shoot, the catch and attack a closeout, the set the screen and roll, the catch the lob, the get the offensive rebound and put back. All of that kind of stuff is, I think, where the points are going to come from for him. And I think he can be a real meaningful scorer, like a very, very high points per minute kind of guy, just getting stuff like that in the flow of the offense. And like, I think the fact that he's been scoring mostly in those kind of ways has been encouraging in terms of what his role could actually be in the real season.
Who's the second most interesting summer league player for you?
Well, the fact that, I mean, it would be Javon Small if he were playing, but but now that he's off the board, um, to me, it's not Jalen Wells. Maybe it's Cam Spencer. Maybe Cam
It's
Smith is the
yeah,
answer.
that's what's notable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's notable to me. It's the fact that it's not Jalen Wells.
I just think there's not a lot of mystery. There's not certainty with Jalen Wells in terms of how good he's going to be going forward. But I don't think there's much mystery about A, can you play? He's already proven that at the NBA level. And then B, what kind of player he is. I think he's going to be the same kind of player he was, which is basically a 3-and-D guy. The question for me is how much better he gets at those things, but I don't think he's going to develop into like the guy you run your offense through or the guy who handles the ball a bunch and creates a bunch of offense. I think he's going to be the guy who takes on high level defensive assignments, the guy who knocks down shots, and the guy who plays in the flow. And like I just, I already know that he is that. I'm interested in how much better he's going to get at that, but I don't think the summer league is going to tell us much on that front.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he just feels like he arrived last year, right? He doesn't need summer league to arrive, right? And so for me, I think that the intrigue is lower on him just because you kind of do have a sense for what he is already. And I'm kind of with you there. And I think when you talk about 3-and-D players, like I'm not sure what kind of defensive value Jalen Wells is going to get out of summer league, given
Right.
the competition, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
he's this is the guy who guarded Luka Doncic and Steph Curry, and like those guys aren't at summer league. So um, yeah, I mean, I'm curious, and I've thought about this quite a bit actually, in trying to figure out what he can get out of this week. And I think the answer is probably like to have the ball a little bit more and, you know, distribute a little bit more and maybe get better in those areas. But that's not the areas where I feel like he's going to,
I
you
just
know, have the most value in the regular season.
I don't think he's Zaire Williams, who was a guy who the Grizzlies were hoping would grow into some bigger role. I think he's already a way better after year one than Zaire Williams was after year one. But I don't think there's the like if you squint, you can see he'll grow into this high usage on ball role. I just don't think that's ever what he's going to be. I don't think there's this thing, well, wait till year three when he's handling the ball and he's scoring 25 a game and dishing 7 assists. I just don't think he's ever going to be that player, which I think is fine. I think to be a great 3-and-D role player, mature, process the game, play a role. I think for him to be that is great, and I just think that's what he's likely just to be.
If you so the question I asked you, I asked it slightly wrong. Who is the second most interesting player? I If you eliminate the word player and you just said what's the second most interesting thing about summer league, I think the answer is the coach. I think
Yeah,
it's Isolo.
and that might be number one. I mean, potentially. The only reason maybe it wouldn't be is that whatever your plans are for summer league, the games have a tendency to get messy, And then when you have a game like Game Three where you don't have any of your main roster players out there, like it's sort of less purposeful. But to the degree that we can sort of detect things about style and approach from him, and I think we can, I do think that, especially with Cedric Howard out, that might end up being, if not the co-equal to GG, it could even be the number one thing in terms of what's interesting about summer league.
Yeah, this was something that was pointed out to me as something to watch as we entered. Summer league was maybe it seemed obvious, but I think it was secondary to the players because the young players everybody's so excited to see. But it was like, hey, you know, pay attention to the way that they're going to play because this is the early install, right? There's a reason why Isalo is coaching Summer League, and that's to get a practice run at how everything is going to operate during the regular season. And so far, I think what we've seen is a ton of ball pressure defensively, uh, a desire to play at a high pace offensively. I don't think that they've quite lived up to that, what he would like. After I talked to him after the third game, he said, the offensive pace isn't quite as quick as I would like. Look, we've talked about this so many times. I feel like you know, I've talked to you about this not on a podcast. And you said, that quote he gave you during the season seems to be coming up over and over and over again, right?
Right.
Um, but it's still relevant now as we get to summer league and as he's named the head coach. So, just what do you make of the style of play? Are you bought in?
I'm bought in that that's what he's going to try to do. What works, what doesn't work. To me, like the ball pressure thing is sort of like, harder to maintain over 48 minutes, harder to maintain over 82 games. And so, like, we'll see where that goes. But, I don't think anybody in the NBA plays the way I grew up with the Nolan Richardson Arkansas Razorbacks. 40 minutes of hell. That was the phrase, not grit and grind. It was 40 minutes of hell. And that was true in your shorts pressure for 40 straight minutes every game, right? That's the way they played. That's college basketball in the 1990s, not NBA in 2025. So I don't think anybody totally plays that way. But watch the two teams that just made the NBA Finals. They play that way to a degree, right? They play fast pace, deep rotation, aggressive defense, including backcourt pressure. Like that's the way those teams played, especially Indiana. And those are the two teams that just made the NBA Finals. So yes, I think 100% that's what Isalo plans to do. And I think the roster, to the degree that the roster has changed, it's changed in that direction, in terms of depth and defense. And, Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Cedric Howard sort of both fit the profile. Ty Jerome maybe doesn't as much, but he fits the profile of other things they want to do on the offensive end. Jock Landale. I mean, I think they've been shifting the roster to fit the way Isalo wants to play on both ends of the floor in different ways. And so, I think the thing he said, in that exchange I had with him where he first he gave the rationale why you would want to play that way. And then he said, but if you can't match the intensity of the other team or beat the intensity of the other team, then you got to do something else. And he did something else because that's what he had to work with. But it was clear that is what he wants to do, and that is what he will try to do. And we're seeing the seeds of that getting planted in the summer league.
I've been working on an Isolo feature, and I don't know when it'll come out, but he's just a really fascinating guy, honestly. It goes back. I started to realize this at the end of last season, towards the end of last season, when he made the analogy after the Miami game that, trying to turn around a European team is like steering a sailboat, but trying to turn around an NBA season as it's going along and becoming the head coach was like trying to turn around a cruise ship.
Right.
And I said, "What's up with the boat analogy?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know. My mom sails around the world." I was like, "Your mom does what?" My mom sails around the world." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." Wait, this guy's actually really interesting, and he gave some really insightful answers and some good stuff. So I'm really looking forward to writing that at some point and hoping to get that out of summer league. Is there anything that we didn't note though about I guess the coaching? Like we do have some assistants on the bench, and there are some assistant holes to fill. Feels like. Did you
So
make any note of that?
in the game I watched, I noted the sitting on either side of Isalo was Jason March, who
Yep.
served in the lead assistant role after the coaching change last season, and then Eric Schmidt. Is that right?
Rick
Who?
Schmidt,
Yeah,
and then I'm forgetting the last.
those are the only two I saw
Forgetting the last.
on the
There's
broadcast.
another.
But I saw those guys on the
Yeah.
broadcast, so I think that's an indicator that they will be returning to Isolo staff. It seems, but clearly there are multiple hires that still need to be made on that staff.
Yeah. Oh, Brian Collins. Brian Collins, who they
Oh,
just brought over.
yeah, the new
Yeah. My,
that's that.
my understanding is will be a player development coach. I don't know if he'll be true assistant, but There's a lot more shuffling to do there. Um, and I don't think that it necessarily 100% means that the the coaches that aren't here at Summer League won't be on the roster, but I do think that there's going to be some new names by the end of the summer. So not that that's the most pressing thing at the moment, um, but yeah. Okay, let's keep going down the player list a little bit, and then we'll set up for Vegas Summer League. I thought Jemai Mashak played really well in the first game, even though he had the rare 10 fouls. Summer League, 10
Yeah,
fouls, man. Wow. And 70 something fouls in the game. It was I will say this. As I watched it, I didn't realize that there were that many fouls until like we got to the second half.
you could feel it. You could feel it in the second half. Yeah.
Or like so I remember sitting there watching the game and I think it was Sensabaugh fouled, and he was like, and it was in the first half, and the PA announcer was like, five personal fouls, and like the crowd like almost laughed. And then I saw Meshack foul, and then it was like six personal fouls, and I was like, oh my gosh, are these guys really fouling as much as I? Because it was a pretty entertaining game. I didn't notice it that much until the second half. But Meshack had 9 assists. I thought that that was notable and good. And the passing didn't show up quite the same way in the third game, but obviously he was playing with different teammates in that situation. And but no, I think there's definitely some things to like there. And this is something I think you've pointed out, something I've said. It does feel like him and Zion Poland could be competing for a two-way spot. And I don't I don't know. We've got more summer league games to play. Maybe Zion Poland will impress, but I think the tools or the specific skills that Meshack has, um, you can see, being utilized at the NBA level.
Yeah, and when you consider that, they just brought in Javon Small, who is, I think, almost certain to be on one of the two ways. That's already a point guard there, and so you'd have to really be into Zion Poland to have 2 point guards on of your three two ways. And given the depth issues they have at the big position, I think we both believe that assuming they find someone they like well enough, and that has to be the case, they are likely to sign some kind of big man 4 or 5 combo 4 5s, some kind of front court player to one of those two ways. So if you have Javon Small in one of the slots and big man to be named later in another, that sort of leaves one open spot for presumably for Pullen or Meshack. In theory, they could go a totally different way, but I don't. That's not what I would expect.
Um, do you think that two-way big could be Baycott? Like I did find
I,
it
do,
notable
I
that they didn't
don't.
play him. You know,
I don't. The one game I
I just don't.
watched,
I don't see the size. It's like the size, and he had some monster. He did have some monster games in the G League last year,
right?
but yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. I wonder how they feel about him though.
Yeah, I don't know either. And maybe I'm basing too much on the one game I did watch of the three, where he was just the ball was going through his hands. He was not recognizing some passes that Cam Spencer was tossing. He's got good size, but not great size, and he doesn't really pop athletically either. Like maybe they do that. They did have him in their system, and to your point, he was productive. But I got it. My guess is there'll be someone else. I'd be scouting for the next Jay Huff in the summer league is what I would be doing.
Cam Spencer played well. What do you make of the way he's played so far? He's obviously shot the ball well. I think there's a different conversation here, but I'll just first you go ahead. What do you think of Cam Spencer so far?
My thing with Spencer, it's similar to my thing with Jalen Wells, but similar but different in that I'm not sure how much I'm going to learn in summer league with him, but for different reasons. With Spencer, I know that he is good at every level except the NBA regular season level. And I don't know that yet. So I already he's good. I have no doubt he's going to be good in summer league. He was good in the G League, good in college. To me, it's just the question of as you take every step you take up, there's more strain on his athleticism. I think that shows up in ball handling against pressure, and it shows up on defense. Those two things in particular. It shows up on being able to score inside the arc. Um, And can all the things he's good at in terms of shooting and processing and all of that overcome that? It's overcome at every level. Will it continue to overcome at the NBA regular season level? And I just think I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if anything can happen in summer league that definitively answers that for me one way or another.
The other thing on Spencer that interests me, um, the way that the team built the roster this offseason suggests that like maybe they aren't feeling the need to have like specialists and specialist roles. Like they let Luke Kennard walk, who did one thing really great, and that was shoot 3 pointers. And Desmond Bain was another shooter that exited to go to Orlando. And so I wonder if they feel like under Isolo they don't necessarily need that type of player, and I wonder if that's the box that Cam Spencer fits in, or if, as you said, he's going to ever be able to do more than that. And so that to me makes me just wonder what his role might be. Like I know that he's probably going to be a back end of the rotation player. Like I think we know that, but you know, if you're going to sign a guy to a standard NBA contract, like I think that you probably see real potential there. And so for me, I think it does kind of all hinge on what he's able to do in addition to that, because I don't really have doubts about his shooting.
I think your best case scenario with Cam Spencer, it's probably some mix of like the two guys who were the backups for Cleveland last year, one of whom is now a Grizzly, which is Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill. I think that Sam Merrill is like a pure shooter who overcomes some of his athleticism limitations just because he's a flat out flamethrower as a 3-point shooter. I think Spencer has that potential as a shooter. He's got a little bit more to his game as a playmaker and as a passer. And I think maybe a guy who has limitations defensively, but like will maybe get some steals out of anticipation and aggressiveness and that kind of stuff. And so I think if he could be like Sam Merrill with a little bit more playmaking to him, sort of that blend of Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, that's like your best case scenario. And that's a good like bench player in the NBA. But I think that's a best case scenario. So I think the Grizzlies are not really, it's less of a fit thing or a skill set thing as we really like this guy. We like his mind, we like his attitude, we like his demeanor, we like some of the skill stuff, and we think there's a player in there, and I think it's a bet on that more so. To me, if they were focused on fit, he wouldn't be on the roster. It would be another big because I think that's where the need is. I think it's a bet on player with Cam Spencer.
Yeah. Um, what do you want to see in Las Vegas? Is there anything you want to see in particular? More good stuff from Gigi? Is there anything, are you going to be, because we think that the Grizzlies may end up adding another two-way big at some point, are you going to be watching all the summer league games, diving into all the tape?
I went through rosters, all the summer
I
league
did too.
rosters. I went through summer league
I did too.
rosters, trying to figure out the hard thing. There's two hard things trying to do this. One is knowing who already has a two-way commitment from a team and who doesn't, right? Because that's a little
Hmm.
unclear. And the other is knowing like who still has two-way eligibility of the older players. Like there's a guy who is not on a summer league roster who is at this point an unsigned free agent who I would think would be a prime candidate if he were two-way eligible. That's Charles Bassey, who was like a third string center for the Spurs last year. I don't know if he's even has two-way eligibility. Another guy I jotted down last night, I was looking at this, who's not on a summer league roster, is Dominic Barlow, who's more of a four, but more of a like guy can play undersized five, who Atlanta just cut. He got signed today to a two-way by the Sixers, so he's sort of off the board. The two guys who seem most interesting to me potentially, who I don't think have two-way commitments, but I do think have two-way eligibility. That I don't know if you came up with different names, but a couple I sort of like put an asterisk next to. Where I got him Liam Robbins, who I think was an SEC player, so you may know him from college, who played a little bit with the Bucks last year, and I think he's uncommitted. And then a guy named PJ Hall, who played at Clemson, I believe,
Clemson, yeah.
and was on a two-way with Denver last year, and they let him go, and now I think is available. Are those guys good? I don't know. Are the Grizzlies like those guys? I don't know, but they jump out as guys who are like bigs who you might be able to get on a two-way who are otherwise uncommitted.
Yeah, and the other thing is like players are going to get waived. Like,
That's right.
that's the other part of it. Like Alex Reese got waived this morning by Philadelphia. Averaged 16 points and seven rebounds
is that
and
an Alabama
1.8
guy?
blocks. Was an Alabama guy,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he fits. Like he shoots threes, right? So like I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. Like as I went through, and I was mostly looking at box scores from the California Summer League and everything. Like,
Well,
who knows?
that's the thing is that most teams haven't started playing yet in terms of the summer, the Vegas stuff. So nobody jumped out at me in terms of games that have played so far. The guy who seemed most notable to me from the few teams that have played is Adama Sanago, but he hasn't actually
Mhm.
been very good, right? But he's a
Former
big,
college teammate of Cam Spencer. Yeah.
yeah, a wide body who was really good in college. I don't think he's on. I don't think he has a two-way commitment with anybody right now. Like, a guy who probably set some screens, get some rebounds. Is that a guy you would consider? He hasn't been lighting it up in the Utah Summer League.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I'm looking forward to just catching some basketball, and I think the Grizzlies get started on the 11th.
You
So
you got to get your Us Weekly like celebrity journalist paparazzi hat out and keep an eye on who shows up. Because Vegas
yeah,
is the show. Like, is Ja gonna be out there? Is Jaron gonna be
I
out
don't think
there?
Ja will be because Ja's on his international tour.
Oh, there we go.
Jaron maybe. I I feel like Jaron would be here. But he's got
But
world travels to
he,
do
he,
as
he also
well.
he
So
also just had the surgery, right?
yeah, that is true. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe you'll get to hook up with Jock Landale in Las
maybe we'll
Vegas,
see Ty Jerome out here. We'll
right?
see new Grizzly Ty Jerome. But yeah, that'll be the other thing. Just watching who comes out to support. I have seen John Conchar. John Conchar was
J-
in Utah.
Jitty lives. Everyone thought Jitty was going to be traded at the deadline. Jitty survived the trade deadline. Everybody thought they were going to have to move Jitty's contract to sign Jaron, but then they added so much money with the Cedric Howard pick. They had to move a bigger contract, so it'll probably be Cole Anthony. So probably not Jitty. Jitty may survive again. Jitty
Yeah,
lives.
I was with Jessica Benson and we ran into Jitty. We were all talking about the F1 movie, um, which I have not seen. Which I did get your movie review though, which was so.
Mixed. But yeah,
So
yeah,
so.
mixed. I like the cars that go vroom. I like that part of it.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I like Kerry Condon's Irish accent. The vroom and the brogue. Those are the things I like about F1.
Jessica Benson's take was that one of the secondary characters is going to end up being a star, and I don't remember the name of the person, but yeah. Anyway, I think you know we'll have to wait and see what happens with Judy, right? I mean, this isn't over. They still have that Cole Anthony contract sitting out there, like he hasn't officially been waived yet, and so
Right.
who knows? Who knows what could happen?
Oh,
Um,
I think there's like a non-zero chance you get a Jitty trade this summer, but maybe not, man. Jitty can play. Jitty can play. By the way,
mhm.
the novelty maybe is worn off, but Jitty can
Team
still
needs
help a
rebounding.
team on the floor. Right.
All right, needs rebounding. That guy gets rebounds. He really does. Um, but yeah, and if you go read the Gigi story, was one of the guys that the team was pointing to, saying there's a guy that never complains and does whatever the team needs him to do, and was on the court in the playoffs this year. So yeah, um, it'll be an exciting summer league. It's going to be fun. Um, wish Cedric Coward were out there, but obviously doesn't sound like that's very likely at this point. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week talking more about Summer League. Make sure you go check out all our stuff at the Daily Memphian. We've got a lot of stuff still to come this summer, and we're pretty excited about it. So thanks